G'day, welcome back to the GODOT top-down shooter tutorial in 3D. This video will be going through adding in the second enemy, which is the shooter type. Now what I've done here is I've gone into this, I've renamed this material to shooter, and I've gone ahead and loaded a different material. Whoops, not that one. I want to click this one here, and I'll have to change it to thumbnails. And the one that I want to use is right there, that one there. Okay, so we've got that model, and then I'm going to export it into my project. Now, I seem to be having issues with GLT binary. If you can get it to work, there shouldn't be a reason for it not working. It just doesn't want to work for me. I'm going to call this one shooter zombie, and click export GLTF. Then I'll go to my project, and I should get a I've got some errors down here, but those are from previous tests. I should be able to check this just by double clicking and click new inherited. It does load, so that's all good. And I'm going to close that, but I'm not going to save it. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a few things. First, we're going to create the enemy itself. So we're going to do that by looking in our scenes folder, and then we should have, where is it? Enemy zombie.tscn. I'm going to make a duplicate of this. I'm going to call it enemy zombie shooter and duplicate that. So then we're going to click this. We're going to have to make some changes to this one, and the changes are going to be pretty straightforward. First of all, I want to change it here to enemy zombie shooter at the top, so it's got a separate name. The collision is going to stay the same. I'm also going to remove this script, by the way. We don't want the same script on this one as is on the other one. The area and collision shape here are going to stay the same. The raycast is going to stay the same. I don't remember what we were using the raycast for. We may have used it, I can't remember if we did or didn't. And then the slow zombie, I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to bring in the Blender model, or game model in this case. I seem to be saving it in different places, but mine's in Blender models here, shooter zombie, and I'll bring that into here. Now this is going to need to be transformed a little bit, because if you remember, my scale was a lot bigger than what we're working with in here. And I also need to rotate it 180 on the Y axis, so it's facing into the negative Z. There's a few other things that I could do here. I'm going to go into the UV texture map for it and change the albedo there, remove filter from it, turn the roughness up quite a bit so it doesn't have so much light reflecting off it. So there we've got our little shooter zombie. Now there's a few other things that we're going to add. We're going to add a timer to this one, and I'm going to set the timer to be 1 is fine, and set it to 1 shot. We'll force it to start. We're also going to add a position 3D. And this position 3D, we are going to move it so that it is in front of the player character, which is right there. So we're going to use that position 3D. We're going to rename it to launcher. That's where it's going to shoot its projectiles from. So there's our player character. We're going to add a script to this top part, and we'll use that there. But we're actually going to get nearly all of the script from this one, so the enemy zombie, and then paste it into here. And we'll go through and make some changes. So the changes for this, first of all, we need to have a variable at the top to determine whether the player can shoot or not. So we're going to set that to false to begin with. We also need to actually load in the bullet. So we're just going to say onReady var bullet. But we are going to come back to this later, load the bullet scene here. We are going to come back to this later and actually load the bullet scene here. So we'll say equals preload. We haven't actually made that bullet yet, so it's not going to work. And this bit here is pretty straightforward. What we want it to do is, currently what it does is when the player enters that area, it moves into the player, it moves towards the player. We actually want it to move away from the player. Really simple. We're just going to set it to negative facing. I'm going to turn their speed down to 50, so they're going to back away a little bit slower. But negative facing, time to move speed, etc. Now this bit here, to play the animations, we need to actually change these. So this is not called slow zombie anymore. It's called shooter zombie. Animation play. Oops, I added 2 of those. And this one here is shooter zombie and play idle. So from there, we will go down the bottom here. We're going to add a few more things here. If body dot, oh that's right, the raycast finds the player. That's what it does. And in here, we're going to say can shoot equals true. And then down here, we're going to say when the player exits that, can shoot equals false. Now, one other thing that I've done already, and I'm going to need to do here, is to connect the timer node to the script. So I click on timeout here, and on timer timeout, connect it to here. And then we're going to say can shoot equals true. So when the timer times out, we will set it to can shoot equals true. We're not going to create the bullet there. So that's all good. We'll create the bullet further up here in the physics process. So first thing, before we get around to creating that bullet, we actually need to create the bullet. So this is a pretty easy step here. And if you wonder why my mouse is going off the screen, it's because I've got all of this done on a different window, and I just need to double check it sometimes. This is just going to be a spatial node, enemy bullet, and we'll add a script to that, enemy bullet, but we won't need it just yet. And then we're going to add in a mesh instance. Now you could model a bullet, I suppose, model something for the enemy, but I'm just going to use a mesh instance. Over here, the mesh I'm going to select is going to be a sphere mesh, and it's quite big. So let's turn it down. You can click on this mesh button, and so I'm going to set the radius to 0.2 and the height to 0.4. Now that's kind of annoying to me. I wish that it had diameter and height so I could set them to the same thing. I'm sure there's a reason for it. Now this doesn't need to be as detailed here, so I'm going to set this to 10 and this to 10. So I'll probably set that to 6. Yeah, there we go. So it doesn't, I mean, zooming in on it, you can see that it's not very spherical, but zooming out, it looks fine. Then we're going to add an area node. Make sure that these are all children of the enemy bullet spatial node. And this one here, we need a collision shape. I don't know why I click on that every time. I know what it means. Collision shape. And I'm going to set that one to sphere and bring it in. Can hold control to bring it in. So it's roughly the same size as that one there. Now we're going to add in a connection here on body entered. We're just going to connect that to the script. So we'll have that for in a minute. We may as well code this part. We'll come back to it in a sec actually. So what we'll do is we'll save that script, save this scene as enemybullet.tscn in our scene folder. File exists. Well, that's fine. It's because I probably didn't delete it from before. So I'm going to overwrite mine. Yours shouldn't exist. And let's go ahead and go back to the enemy shooter script. All right, so down here in this part, we want to check, after it does the animation stuff, if can shoot. And this is also if follow player equals true. So this is kind of checking, is the player in range as well, I guess. So if can shoot, then we're going to say new bullet equals bullet.instance, new bullet.global transform equals $launcher.global transform. Now this is going to cause an error, and the reason I'm showing you this is because we did it with the tracerfire and it worked with that, but that's because the tracerfire was a rigid body and we were applying force to it. This is a little bit different, but I'm going to do it this way just to demonstrate why this is an error. Get parent.add child bullet and set can shoot equals false, and then set the timer, so $timer.start. So we're going to force it to start every time it shoots, and that way it will be at least 2 seconds before it shoots, unless the player goes out of range and then they come back in, because as soon as they come back into range, it sets the can shoot to true. It's all right, it's all good, not a problem. Okay, so let's go ahead, and we do need to add the actual bullet thing up the top here. Equals preload. I'm just going to get the bullet and find it. It's down here, enemy bullet. Copy the path, paste the path there. All right, now I'll better make a test scene. Better add this actual player to the test level. I'm just going to delete this. I've put my things in a level layout so that I can easily just delete it in this case, and I'm just going to put that enemy zombie shooter in here about there. Now you notice that this one will still walk towards the player when I get within range. Actually, it crashes. Let's see. In base spatial, I should say new bullet. So that was wrong for me there. Okay, so it does add these bullets. Oh, and he slowly walks away, so that's right. Okay, so he's adding these bullets at that 2D node, position 3D that's right in front of him. He's walking away quite slow. Might want to speed that up. But the bullets don't do anything, so we want to change that. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into the enemy bullet script that we had open earlier. We're going to set up a few variables at the top here. Variable bullet speed. I'm going to set it to 5. Variable player position. Variable bullet position. And variable direction. And then in here, in the function ready, I'm going to get rid of that. And we're going to say, let's see, I actually need this player position and bullet position here. I'll put them in here. Variable player pos equals get parent get node player dot global transform. You'll notice before that I said it was going to cause some errors when we did that in the other thing. We haven't fixed that yet because we haven't got this moving. You'll see the error shortly. So this is going to be the player's position, the global transform.origin. We just want the position of the player XYZ. We don't want their rotation or anything. And then variable bullet position equals global transform.origin. So this is the bullet position. Now we do need the direction that the bullet's going to move in. And this is pretty simple if you understand vectors. If you've done any physics, you'll understand this, but we're just going to subtract the bullet position from the player position, and that will give us a directional vector. Player position minus bullet position. So that's the direction. Then in the process, so func underscore process, all we're going to do here is translate this bullet. Now it's not going to be a rigid body. That's why I'm not going to make it move. And I probably should have done this with some of the earlier things as well, but it doesn't matter now. There's different ways of doing things. Whoops. Direction times bullet speed times delta. Okay. So now it should work. However, it won't. And you'll see it looks like it's working to start with, and then it shoots off that way. But if I go up here, it actually shoots in the right direction. And I'm sure that, and if I go over here, can't figure that out. Very bizarre. Okay, so what we need to do is we actually need to just, when we create the bullet on this one, and it's this bit here, when we create the bullet, this is giving the bullet the same rotation as the launcher, which we don't want. We only really want the position of it, and then we can just translate the bullet however we want. It doesn't matter about the bullet's rotation. It's a sphere. It looks the same all the way around. So dot position, sorry, not dot position, dot origin. Or we could, I think we might be able to use dot position, so let's try it. No, not dot position, it's dot origin. Which will give us the center of that object. And then it shoots towards us there, shoots towards us there, and there. And that's really fast, so you may want to turn that speed down. But you can see that it's slowly backing away. If I increase that number, maybe 80, it will move away a little bit faster. And it gets to a certain point where it does stay back. But what we probably want to do is to make it so that that shape is a lot larger on the shooter enemy. Because otherwise they just kind of get to a certain point, they stop shooting at you, and then that's done. Or we could do this. This will make it so that they pretty much shoot all the time, as long as they've found you once. Okay, now we have to fix something here in the bullet script. So if we go down to this part here, currently it's just going to pass straight through the player. What we need to do is check what it's colliding with. Now we could say if body.name equals not equal to, well, let's just actually do this. If it collides with something, we'll go Q free. The problem with it is that it will, you can see there, it immediately collides with the enemy and then deletes itself. So we're going to have to fix that up. So what we need to do is we could go if body.filename is not equal to, and we can just grab this here, copy path. If it's not equal to that, so in other words, if it's not the one that shot it, and there's probably another way to do this, but if the body.filename is not equal to, or we could go body.name not equal to parent, that would be fine as well, I think. But this one here, if it's not equal to that, then we can Q free. Now what that will do is it will mean that it can shoot at the player, and you see that the bullet stops as soon as it gets to the player. It also means if we were to open up our test level and I add back in my level layout, is that enemy even in the right place? Enemy zombie shooter, no, I put him in the wall. So let's put him here. Let's go through here. Let's see if it misses me. Well, it can't because it's so fast. Let's change that enemy bullet speed down. Bullet speed to 2. I'm not sure if it's actually avoiding me or not. I can't quite tell. I don't know if the collision on the player is really large. No, it's not. It's quite small. Enemy bullet. Let's have a look at that script. On body, on area, body entered. Body if body.filename is not equal to that. Q free. The player. I'm not entirely sure why it appears to be doing that. It's almost like when it leaves this area, it gets destroyed. I might just once again turn this, just to check, we'll turn this down to 0.5 so it travels really slow and I can definitely dodge it. And that way I'll know it's not colliding with me. Okay, so that was good there. Let's go over here. Okay, so no, it gets to a certain point and then deletes itself. Well, we'll have a look at fixing that up. Actually, I know what is happening. It's hitting the ground. I can kind of see it getting smaller, and at some point it hits the ground. So we'll have to have a look at why it's actually doing that. I think it's because if I go to the player, it's aiming for the origin of the player here rather than, and we might just go add 1 on the z-axis. So let's go to the enemy bullet script, player pos, bullet position is its origin there. variable player pos, and then we'll just go player pos.y minus equals 1. I wonder if that is negative. No, so it'll be plus equals 1. Let's just double check here. So if I go to inspector and I set this, okay, so y up is positive. That's fine. Of course it is. I don't know why I'm thinking it wouldn't be. And enemy bullet script should be plus equals. We'll just add 1 unit, and that way it should go further. Yeah, there we go. Now you'll notice that it is, if I'm closer to the player, it shoots a lot slower. That's because of the way that the vector is being calculated. So to fix that, we say here, put this on here, and then say dot normalized. And I think it's normalized, might be with an S. Nope, spatial. I'll just check it, but it's probably going to give me an error, isn't it? Yeah, okay. So we need to normalize this vector, which I will just bring up here. So normalize vector and see what it is. You can see here that I'm looking for, and normal. Okay, we'll just do it that way. So rather than that, we'll just do that, and then direction equals direction dot normalized, like that. That should work, and now it shouldn't matter how far away I am from the player. Really far, goes really slow, and if I turn it up to 5, I'll turn it up to 3. Let's test that. It looks to be working. I could probably turn that speed up quite a bit more now, maybe 10. That's better, and it doesn't matter if I'm really close or far away, the speed will be the same. Okay. We may want to add, for example, you may want to add an extra area here for the player that disables the shooting range. So at the moment they'll back up so that they're outside of that area there, but you could have a second area node that determines how far away the actual enemy range is. You could also do that with the raycast as well, but it's up to you. Okay, so by this time here, you should be starting to understand what we're doing with some of these things and be able to make some modifications to it that suit your game, that, you know, start learning by doing and practicing, exploring it a little bit more. In the next video, actually I'm not entirely sure what we're going to do in the next one. I think we're going to start on looking at the user interface, and then we'll start to bring all those other things in, like destroying the enemy, taking damage, all that stuff. So that's probably where we're going in the next one, but I've got a little bit of research to do, and then we'll get onto that one.